So this is what my predecessors have done for a long time, and we are just putting them together in front of you in a short span of 15 minutes. So it is nearly impossible to touch upon each and everything that you have in Maharashtra. So this is just the conditions of Maharashtra in all regards, like political, cultural, archaeological, numismatic, epigraphical, etc. And I have just tried to highlight some things which are lesser known or lesser studied. But all of you must be knowing the political history of the Satavahanas and the history of Maharashtra, because Satavahanas and even their predecessors, Mauryans, they play a major role in the history of the country as well as the state. But today we are going to see some important things which people do not generally see about Maharashtra. And then there are many students over here, they might have not got any chance to visit Maharashtra and see the places which are there, which are extremely important for the history of the country as well as the history of the region. So when we talk about the political history of Maharashtra or the history of Maharashtra, we generally start with the rule of the Mauryas. But then we are fortunate to have the records during the times of Buddha also, when we are told that Buddha, one of the disciples of Buddha, when he wanted to go to Sopara to spread the religion, he was warned by Gautam Buddha himself when he told him that please be careful. You are going to Sopara, people over there are short-tempered, hot-tempered, and they start fighting immediately. So please take care when you go and preach the religion to Sopara. This has been the fame and name of Maharashtra right from ancient times. Even this is not only for Maharashtra, I guess this is for Karnataka also. Because there are literary references, like in Vasudev Hindi also. When Vasudev talks about Ashmaka Desha, it encompasses almost all the things which we have Maharashtra and Karnataka next to each other. So similarly, during Buddha's times only, Buddhism had reached Maharashtra, and then as a corollary to that, when we say that Mauryans, they were also ruling over here, as we saw in the previous presentation, Mauryans had control over Karnataka also. So it was obvious that it was over Maharashtra also. But the most important thing for Maharashtra during the Mauryan rule was that Ashoka had appointed a monk who was Yavana. You had got Rakhita, we had Dhamma Rakhita. And he was a Yavana who was appointed at Sopara by Ashok. And the information comes from, again, the Ceylonese chronicles, that Yavana Dharma Rakshita was here to spread the religion. The fact that a Yavana was appointed to spread the religion in Western Maharashtra or Western India is extremely significant, because a Yavana is sent to a region where there are Yavanas. Only a person who can speak their own language will be able to convince the people to adopt this particular new religion. And that is why we see that Ashok had ingeniously sent a Yavana to spread Buddhism in Western Maharashtra or Western India. So we had these interactions with Buddhism and Yavanas right from the beginning. So we should note that even prior to Ashok, there were settlements of Yavanas in Sopara. As we know later on also, Sopara was a region, or even Western India, Western Maharashtra was a region where we had many foreigners who had settled down over there. Dhenukakato, as many of you would know, was probably a colony of the Yavanas. You get many references to that colony in the inscriptions at Karla. So this is the point from where we start, and all of you are aware, because everybody who starts learning history of India has to learn the history of the Mauryas and the extent of Mauryan Empire, which was quite huge. Then when we talk about the inscriptions of Ashok, we also are fortunate to have one at Sopara. This is the major rock edict. There are two pieces of major rock edicts of Ashoka that are found at Sopara. Plus, we don't have minor and pillar and cave inscriptions, but you have many of them. You have many of the minor edicts in Karnataka itself. This is the stupa at Sopara, which was again initially constructed during the times of Ashoka, but it was renovated from time to time. And probably the last renovation took place in around 7th, 8th centuries AD. This is the piece of rock which contains the 8th edict of Ashokan. Out of those 14 major rock edicts, out of the 14 inscriptions of the set of major rock edicts, we have the 8th and 9th, which were found in Sopara, and the pieces are kept in the currently known as Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Vastu Sangrahalaya. Then we go to the next dynasty, which is again a very important one, not only again for the history of Maharashtra, but also the history of the country. Because we get a lot of information of this dynasty through the literature, the Puranas. We also have many inscriptions, coins. N number of material is there to understand the story of the Satavahanas. So this is a generic framework of the history of the dynasty, of the Satavahana dynasty from around 1st century BC. Some people might say that this is 2nd century BC, but it is very difficult to pinpoint the beginning of the Satavahana dynasty. So this is the significance of the dynasty lies that this is the first native dynasty of Maharashtra. Earlier we had rules of the Mauryas, and then probably there were rules of the small rulers like Maharathi, Mahabhoja, Mahagamika, Mahasenapati. These were probably the officers in the army of the Mauryan empire. And after disintegration of Mauryas, we probably have had the rule of these small rulers, minor rulers, because we see their extent only to a certain region and not everywhere all over the Maharashtra. But then we see that there were matrimonial alliances between the Satavahanas and some of them like Maharathis. So when we talk of Satavahanas, the earliest evidence comes in the form of coins from Madhya Pradesh. These are to study the Satavahana empire, to study the Satavahana dynasty. There are various sources available, and only the sources that come to us through numismatics are quite reliable because they tell you a lot more than what you are told through the Puranas or the inscriptions. And recent studies, especially the study done by Dr. Shailendra Bhandare, it has thrown a lot of light on the predecessors of Satavahana and even the contemporaries of Satavahana and the later rulers who ruled after the Satavahanas. It is not possible to put his entire thesis in 15 minutes, so I'm just putting it in one slide where we have some evidences of the rules of the Senapatis or the officers of the Mauryan rulers, the Mauryan Empire, ruling in some parts of Maharashtra. And one of the most important ones is the Maharathis. The Maharathis were ruling in western parts of Maharashtra near Junnar region. And then for Satavahanas, we have the inscriptions coming from various places, but these 2-3 places are extremely important because they tell us about the genealogy, the activities of the Satavahana rulers, etc. So we know that the Satavahanas had matrimonial alliance with the Maharathis, but then prior to that, Satavahanas were also not very powerful rulers. The earliest inscription of the Satavahana period comes from Nashik, not from Naneghat, but comes from Nashik. As many of you will know that this whole hill is known as the Trirashmi hill at Nashik, and then the group of caves is known as Pandavleni. In cave number 19 at Nashik, we have an inscription of the second ruler of the Satavahana, second according to the Puranas, ruler of the Satavahana dynasty, that is Krishna or Kanna. And where over there, so here on the window sill, you will see an inscription written during the times of Krishna or Kanna. And then we have this as the earliest ruler who is depicted in the inscriptions of the Satavahana dynasty. And then we have the famous inscription at Naneghat, which we see probably written during the times of Naganika, who was the wife of Sri Satakarni. And then most probably she was the daughter of Maharathi Tranakaila. His statue, we see the remains of the statues of various family members of the Satavahana family or dynasty. And then here we see the father of Sri Satakarni. Then we see he himself and his wife, Naganika. We see her father and their children, but the uncle is not shown. So probably the uncle and the nephew had some strained relations. Probably after the death of Simukha, Krishna took over, and then he did not let Sri Satakarni assume the power, but later on when he came of age, he probably took the power back from Kanna. So many of you might have seen this place called as Naneghat, where there is a cave, where on the back wall of the cave you see the remains of feet, and then at the top over here there are label inscriptions. It's difficult to see because they are very shallow carvings, where you see the names of the people whose images were carved at the base. They were written. You can still see them, They are called as the label inscriptions, but they on both the walls, on the left and the right wall of the cave, you have long inscription, which is a record of the sacrifices that were performed by the couple Satakarni and Naganika. This is a conjectural reconstruction of the people whose images were carved on the back wall over here. This is a conjectural reconstruction. We have not seen them in this form. Only the feet remains are there, but with the help of the names written above and the remains of the feet, we can say what was there. As this is a very famous inscription and most of you have studied this, I'll just go through quickly the slide because you know which were the sacrifices that were performed by this couple, Satakarni and Naganika. This is very important because the Satavahanas are known for the patronage given to the Buddhist caves. But then when we try to see the early kings of the Satavahana family, we find that they were giving patronage, they were the followers of Vedic religion and they were performing sacrifices by themselves. So we have these donations which were given to them, and we find that later rulers, in fact the wives of the later rulers probably were the patrons of Buddhism, and of course the kings were also the rulers, the patrons of Buddhism. So these are some of the numismatic remains. This is the coin of Sri Satakarni coming from Junnar region, and this is extremely important because this is the first coin ever issued by a queen in Indian subcontinent, and this is of course by Queen Naganika. We get many such coins in the region around Junnar. We know about the significance of Naneghat as we have the location of Sopara and then Kalyan over here on the western coast, and from there this trade route starts and comes to Junnar via Naneghat. A ghat is a pass or way to cross the mountain. So there were many such ghats, they are still over there, and there were many in those days also. But the Naneghat is a place, a ghat which you cannot go by. It's not a motorable road as such. You have to climb it with your feet or with animals. So with that, but this is the shortest point to cross the Sahyadris. This is how it is located. This photo has been taken from a fort nearby called as Jivdhan, and where the point where the arrow goes is the starting point of the ghat, and you climb the whole. This is the edge of the mountain. This is the end of the Sahyadris, and from here you get down. The pathway is like this. This is where you are. This is the so-called toll collecting pot. This is the pot, and this is how you come down. Then after crossing this much of area, you have this cave where you have the tanks over there, so that people who climb the whole pathway would rest there, would drink water, and then they would read the inscription. They would know about the greatness of the king in whose territory they are going to enter now, and then they would pay the toll also. So this is how the inscription is written on the left wall and the right wall, and at the back wall you have these remains of the feet of the Satavahana family members, and this is how the pathway goes down. There is no valley as such. When you cross the mountain, Sahyadri mountain, when you go via Kandala, Lonavala, you see deep valleys. It is not there it's not dangerous at all, because you have to go zigzag in this way. Even people use this pathway like this. Every week, more than 2,000 cattle cross the pathway to go to the village at the base. There is a bazaar over there, so they sell their cattle, they bring new ones, and then come back to Junnar or the villages nearby. So this is how it's being done every day, every week today also, because they save a lot of money for transport and all. So once myself, even Dr. Khare was there with me, when we were crossing the Naneghat, we lost our way, because there in between there is a plateau, and then there are many pathways. You don't understand where to go, and we didn't have anyone who knew the road, so we were lost, and then we were wondering what to do now. So at that time a couple came from the villages near the Naneghat cave, and they said, we cross this pathway every day because this is very cheap, we don't have to spend money for bus travel, and within half an hour we just go down. They were using slippers to cross the way. We were like fortified with shoes and all, but we lost the way. So we thought that these are the modern incarnations of Satakarni and Naganika who came to save us from that riddle of getting lost in the pathway. So here you see is a plateau in between called as Shingrucha Pathar, and from there you start getting various pathways which take you down to the end of the ghat. And then there are some medieval construction remains also on the Shingrucha Pathar. In between, there are certain tanks where you see some inscriptions like this. This peon is cleaning one inscription over here, and this is the end of the pathway. So it is only this much area that you cross to, yeah. And this is the end of, and it comes now to the Malshes Ghat, which is a motorable road now. Yeah, Nana means coin. So traditionally it has been known as Nane Ghat because people say that there was a lot of that toll collecting pot is there. That is one of the theories. Not all scholars agree with that theory, but then the name is it has traditionally come down to us. So there was the taking and giving of coins. So from not Nana, this is Nana. Nana means coin. So because it was a trade route and a lot of money exchange was done over there, it is called as Nane Ghat. So we have the Satvahana kings. You know about their story. I need not tell you. And we know about this interaction and the struggle between Sri Gautami Putra Satakarni and Nahapana. This is again a very famous event in Indian history. But then we get a lot of coins like these, which were restruck or counter-struck by Gautami Putra Satakarni after defeating Nahapana. This is Nahapana, the Western Kshatrapa ruler, who had invaded the territories of the Satavahanas. Many of you must have heard of this Jogartembi hoard, where more than 13,000 coins of Nahapana were discovered. So this is a place called as Jogartembi. It's a confluence between two rivers, Darna and Godavari. They come together over here. And this is the village where you have where the hoard was discovered. Then we know about the Satvahana rulers and their coins are there. This again is a very famous story, history which everybody knows. And then the maritime trade during the Satvahana rule is attested even by the impressions of ships on the coins of the Satavahanas. Their rule is also famous for the creation of so many Buddhist rock cut caves. As you might know that more than 80% of the rock cut caves that we have in India are in Maharashtra. And out of them, most of them were, nearly 75 to 80% were created during the times of Satavahanas. And you can see them again clustered around the Sahyadri mountain range because they are along the trade routes which are there. You must have heard of Bhaja, you must have studied about Bhaja when you were doing your MAs. But then this is the way you see the caves, you see the whole terrain, and even the monks used to help the traders probably in a way, and in return the traders would give donations to the monks. In this way the monasteries survived for a long time. You can see at Bhaja that there are 14 memorial stupas which were carved in the memory of the monks who died at that particular place. There are 14 such stupas with inscriptions. We know their names in whose memory the stupas were created. Karle again is a very famous site, and here at the entrance we have got this pillar, lion pillar, which imitates the Ashokan pillar, but then there is a donation of a Maharathi on this particular pillar, and that is very significant because we know that the Maharathis were still living when the Satavahanas were ruling, and they were giving donations to this. And this is again very important for you people because Bhutapala from Banwasi had come over there all the way to coordinate the activity of excavations for the Chaitya at Karla. See, you see that there are so many inscriptions giving the recording donations of the pillars or a window sill or a doorway. So all that activity was coordinated by this particular person whose name was Bhutapala. He was a Shreshthi and he had come from Vaijayanti. So they had very good relations at that time, probably political or economic or something like that. And he has proudly recorded his donation over here, and he says that this Chaitya is Uttamam Jambudvipam. That is best Sethino Bhutapalena Karita. Yeah. Yes, Selaghara, which is the best in the Jambudvipa. A very important inscription from Karla. Then the rest of the caves, again you are aware of, these are World Heritage Sites, and most of them were created during the times of the Satvahana rule. Junnar itself has got the largest cluster of rock-cut caves in India, that is 183. More than them, the caves are here in Junnar. There are many groups, like there are 3 groups in this particular hill. Then we have Amba Ambika, Bhutalena, Bhima Shankar, then we have Lenyadri. So these many hills are there. Nashik of course is very important, and this particular cave again is very important because it records the defeat of Nahapana at the hands of Gautamiputra Satakarni. And then in cave number 10, we also have the donation given by the son-in-law of Nahapana, Pushavadata. And then we also see the record of the rulers who came after the Satavahanas to this region. They were the Abhiras. So we have the record in this particular cave. But again, the most important thing we should know and note that we had a lot of interaction with the Yavanas. And we have got this particular statue, a very small figurine of Poseidon from the excavations at Kolhapur. The excavators identified that house as the house of a Roman merchant because all the goods, even the pottery, was imitated Roman pottery over there, related where this is bronze. Yeah, and then we generally think that this must have come from Rome because this is a god who a Roman would worship. But recently, in an unpublished research done by the State Department of Archaeology and Museums Government of Maharashtra, Dr. Tejas Garge, he informed me that when they did the chemical analysis of this statue, they noted that this was made in India. So we can imagine that how Indians were clever and doing such things for them.
Maybe obviously by Greek artists.
Could be, but then they might have got some models in front of them which they imitated and made for the foreigners in India, just as we get made in China Indian idols. Similarly, we used to make their gods and goddesses like this. Then of course we talked about the maritime trade. Kolhapur again is a very important place, and which because of the proximity to Karnataka, we should note that Kolhapur, even though it is famous for Mahalakshmi, we should note that it had a very important Buddhist phase in Kolhapur's life. We had found a stupa like this, a brick stupa was excavated, and then a stone casket was found which had got inscription on it. It was something like this. It is kept in the archives of Prince of Wales Museum in Mumbai. This was the inscription on the stone box. And then accidentally in Kolhapur again, this group of objects was discovered. In that pot, yes, some objects of worship of a Buddhist person were found. Unfortunately, after the recording in Royal Historical Society, the objects are lost today. So the whole thing came because of the ports that we have in Maharashtra and the maritime trade, even the trading network on the land route, and then we have got so many urban centers are also there which actually had helped or they emerged because of the hectic trade, and now we see that this paved the foundation for the later powerful dynasties like the Kadambas again, because they are extensions of Maharashtra in a way for their rule. So thank you so much. I know it was a very cursory overview of whatever you have in Maharashtra, but it's difficult to put everything together in 15-20 minutes.